And welcome everyone to today's council meeting. I'll just ask you to bow your heads and we'll open with council prayer. Heavenly Father, we ask for wisdom, discernment and your favour as we deliberate on the business of council. Bless our meeting as we work together to improve the lives of the people we serve. We meet to improve our community, to use our resources wisely and well, to represent all members of our community fairly, to make decisions that promote the common good. We recognise our responsibility to the past and the future and the rights and needs of both individuals and community. As trusted servants, we seek blessings on our deliberations and on our efforts here today. May we act wisely and well. We ask this in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen. Right. We are all present. We don't have any apologies. And today for public forum, we welcome Linda Manning and Leonie Belmont. Leonie's here. Okay. Linda, you're scheduled first, but you'd like Leonie first? Okay, that's fine. I'm happy with that. Welcome, Leonie. We are recording, so if I could just get you to turn your microphone on so that everybody can hear you. Just read one of
Need to push it again, Leon.
That's that. Perfect. Thank you. We're all yours.
Thank you very much for the privilege of speaking to you all today. I'm here as a Tararua ratepayer to express my deep concern about the proposal to forcibly medicate Dannevirke residents with the known neurotoxin fluoride via the public water supply. As a retired nurse midwife, I am particularly concerned for the pregnant women and their unborn children. While the placenta does protect these children against some toxins, research in Canada has shown that fluoride causes a drop of about 4% in the IQ of preschoolers whose mothers drank fluoridated water during their pregnancies. I have the research here if anyone wants to read it. This research was published in the Pediatric Journal of the American Medical Association. This is a prestigious, peer-reviewed professional publication. And a professor of pediatric neurology compared the effect of fluoride to that of lead, which has long been known as a dangerous poison. Bottle-fed babies are doubly at risk since the essential boiling of water during the preparation of infant formula concentrates the dose of fluoride that they receive. Unfortunately, the bad news doesn't stop there. Fluoride also adversely impacts the absorption of magnesium, which in turn affects the absorption of calcium into the body, thus weakening bones. Medical research shows that children in fluoridated areas are significantly more likely to suffer fractures than those in non-fluoridated areas. I hope that some of you may remember the old Colgate advertisement where a piece of chalk was dipped into some dyed fluid. That demonstrator showed that the dye was absorbed from the outside into the chalk and explained that that is how fluoride is absorbed into and strengthens teeth, not via the bloodstream. It goes in there. It is therefore not surprising that the 2022 New Zealand school dental statistics showed no significant difference in tooth decay rates between fluoridated and unfluoridated areas. What makes the difference is diet and dental hygiene. I use Colgate toothpaste, and their final instruction for use is do not swallow, rinse with a little water. They know that it is toxic. And if swallowed, it's going to cause harm. They don't want to be sued, and I don't blame them. While I am particularly concerned for the infants and children whose whole lives will be adversely impacted by fluoride in their drinking water, the effects will be felt by everyone to a greater or lesser extent. I personally do not want to increase my risks of developing dementia or of suffering broken bones. While I am aware that you have a directive from central government, it is this council, all of you, who are responsible for the public water supply in Tararua. And you have a moral responsibility towards all the residents of this district to supply us with safe drinking water. Indeed, I personally regard this as your most important duty, and I respectfully request that you do not allow this toxic fluoride to be put into our water. Thank you very much for your attention. I will be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Councillor Gilmore.
Thanks very much, Your Worship, and thank you very much for coming along and for everyone that's come along for, I guess, for your impassioned case. My question, though, was, Leonie, are you aware of the High Court ruling that just came out on Friday, where Justice Hood clearly reaffirmed that council's role, its role was limited to mandatory compliance when it came to adding fluoride into water? So I'm just wondering if you were aware of that.
I wasn't aware of that particular one. I know there is the mandate from government, but I know it's a stupid comparison in many ways. Hitler gave mandates. It was not an excuse acceptable to the criminal court after the war that I was told to, therefore I massacred 6 million Jews. It's just not right, therefore do not do it. You have a conscience and you need to follow it. And if it gets you into trouble with government, you'll have most of the country behind you, because nobody likes being dictated to.
Thanks very much, Your Worship, and thanks for that. I suppose when I'm having a look at, the information that's being provided to us, knowing that the Director General of Health is the decision maker, as has been reaffirmed by the courts, I was wondering, first of all, have you put this information and these pleas through to the Director General of Health? And if so, what was her response?
I have put it through to the Ministry of Health, and I received about that thick of old research. When I wrote back, pointing out modern research, including what I've shared with you today, I got no reply at all. I don't know if that's acceptable. I don't think it's acceptable for a government not to reply, but I have had no reply, and it's been several weeks now, so I'm going to write again.
Councillor Long.
Through you, Mayor Tracy. Linda, thank you. Leonie, thank you very much for your presentation. Could I have a copy of the document that you, thank you, at some stage? Thank you.
Thank you. And thanks, Councillor Gilmore, for raising that. I do have a copy of the High Court ruling if you'd like to have that. I'll share that with you before you leave, because there was some pieces in here that directly refer to what council's responsibility is. So I don't quite agree that it is our moral obligation, and that document there quite clearly states that as well. Right. Welcome, Linda.
Thank you, Mayor Collis and councillors Long, Wards, Wallace and Gilmore, and Community Board Member Hines for your participation in our fluoride meeting on the 23rd of April. From our point of view, the meeting went very well, and we appreciated your willingness to respond to questions from the floor. I do apologise for the insulting remarks that were made to one of our councillors after the close of the meeting. I had reassured you all that we would do our best to maintain your safety that evening, and I'm very sorry that one person breached guidelines that everyone had been given at the outset. I have to say that person was unknown to me and was not a member of Fluoride Free Tararua. However, I have managed to track them down, and they have asked me to pass on their apologies to the councillor concerned, which I have done by way of email. The person's intention was not to cause harm, but they did acknowledge the use of inappropriate language out of frustration and were sorry for the harm that they caused. I'm sorry that did happen. Now, I have a feeling that all of us here in this room, by and large, will have the well-being of this community at heart. In that regard, I believe that we are all on the same page. I really want us to begin to understand together what is at stake here. With the proposal for fluorosilicic acid to be added to our local water supply, I do realise that to understand this together would require us to actually sit down and properly engage in dialogue, where we all have the opportunity to speak, to listen, to discuss as adults, and to not be afraid to consider a view that might be different from the one that we currently hold. This system of speaking into what feels like a wall of resistance without any response requires feels very unnatural. No offence intended, it's just how I feel about doing this. I would actually rather not be here. I don't do this as a retirement hobby. I have an 11-month-old pup at home who is fighting a very serious health issue requiring my full attention 24/7. I would rather be at home with her, and immediately after this we have another appointment at the vet clinic. None of us in fluoride-free Tararua are doing this because we enjoy it or because we have nothing better to do. We do not want to be fighting against our own council because our council has been threatened by central government to act against our best interests. And to bully you, and that's what it is, a threat, that fine, that is bullying. For them to bully you into submission is very revealing, as is your submission to that bullying. When did democracy actually become tyranny in New Zealand? Because, like it or not, that is what we have right now, right here in Dannevirke. All of that being said, I have here an initial response to the statement that was read out at our public meeting by Mayor Tracy on behalf of the council. And I hope that this might be a starting point for an ongoing public discussion on this matter, which could take place in the next few weeks, if you are willing to work with us and not against us, the people of Dannevirke. I'm asking if you as our council will consider actually sitting down with us to discuss this properly, and not in an unnatural situation like this, where I speak and you hopefully listen, but do not respond necessarily, unless of course you want. Yeah. We all know that this is not a normal conversation. Come on, people, this is not normal. I don't normally do this. This is just weird. Okay, I've got 4 questions. Question 1, are you willing to have a two-way discussion with us about fluoride? In your statement, you acknowledged that fluoride has always been strongly divisive in communities. Given that knowledge, I'm wondering why council decided not to include this community in consultation regarding the government directive. It has been stated by central government you are not required by them to consult with us on the matter of fluoridation of our water supply. I note that government did not say that you must not consult with us, only that they did not require you to. As I've said to you before, we, the people of Dannevirke, do require you to consult with us on this matter. The choice to consult or not to consult with the Dannevirke community on this has always been and still is your decision to make. Government cannot stop you from consulting with us. So question 2, why did you initially decide not to consult with us? Were you hoping to avoid opposition from the people? Or was there another reason for your decision not to consult? I'm wondering how it might be And I'd like you to wonder this too. If you still decide to make the fluoride conversation open to all of us, the whole community, I want to encourage you that it is not too late to do that. And right now, in the next few weeks, would be a perfect opportunity for us to properly engage in an actual dialogue. Instead of us trying to convince you of something and you trying to convince us of something, it just doesn't work, does it? So I'm asking you to imagine the present time you are comfortable relying on the advice from the Ministry of Health and the Director General about the safety of fluoridating water supplies and the significant oral health benefits. We have pointed out to this council in many different ways that these claims of safety and efficacy from MOH are based on old data, as Leonie has pointed out to you. Out-of-date research, no longer held to be factually correct. I have to let you know we are so very disappointed and terribly frustrated that whilst you say you have listened to us, have you actually listened and have you considered all of the information that we have provided to you? To say that you have found both ours and information from MOH to be so equally compelling that you find yourselves to be unable to discern which is correct suggests that you have not considered the updated and well-researched information at all. I hope you'll forgive me if I say that this sounds very much like a cop-out. And I mean no disrespect, but honestly, it really just seems like an easy way to wash your hands of the very serious decision to mass medicate the local community with or without our permission. That is why I say this is not democracy. This is tyranny. Do you understand that? Do you understand that? We're talking about tyranny. Force medicating an unwilling population is tyranny, not democracy. Please think about it, people. You are clearly intelligent people. You wouldn't be sitting where you are if you were not. So I am wondering if the truth is more about your fear of displeasing government, which may well be a greater fear, and it is, clearly, than displeasing your community. And then there are the possible legal challenges, both from government and from within the Tararua community. I can understand your trepidation, and I've said it before, you have been placed in an unenviable position, and I would not like to be sitting where you are. But more worryingly to me is that even though fluoride is known to collect over time in the body, having a half-life of 20 years, and is now proven to cause a hardening of cells that contain calcium, you appear to have no fear at all of causing such actual bodily harm to the people of Dannevirke. Is that really the case, that you are willing to risk harming us without giving that a thought? I have to say that I doubt this. I think that you've probably found a way, somehow, to ignore those worrying thoughts. What if, instead of taking that upon yourselves, you had been willing to lay it all before the entire community from the onset, rather than being in this position of having to shield yourselves and to protect the community from the threat of large fines? What if you had decided that this decision is too big for you as a council and it requires a whole community approach? Think about it. We have spent a huge amount of time and effort to gather signatures to the petition that you have received and passed on to MOH. Have you considered that the large number of local people who signed that petition are representative of the desire of this community to live without having our water supply contaminated by a toxic waste product from the fertiliser industry that has the potential to cause grievous bodily harm, including brain damage, not only to our unborn children, but also to residents of all ages who will be forced to ingest this water. The people of Dannevirke do not want to be subjected to this use of our bodies as a filtration system for a non-toxin. We do not want our land and our waterways to be contaminated with fluorosilicic acid every time we turn on a tap to wash our clothes or water our gardens. We have so many more questions which thus far go unanswered by this council because you actually refuse to listen to the real issues here. You just hark back to the law and appear blinkered to only follow an unlawful government edict out of fear of the consequences. It has been asked in this chamber why so many health organisations and professionals continue to go along with water fluoridation. I suggest to you that many of them are just with distance, complying with the pressure coming from the authorities above them who have the power to withhold financial support and to bring promising careers to an end. Most of those practicing health professionals just follow protocols and procedures that are scripted for them. They will have had no opportunity to hear any view that opposes the official narrative. They are also very unlikely to have the time or the energy to risk their career and income to carry out a search for evidence that might reveal an opposite line to the one that they have been comfortably fed for decades. We have heard horror stories of little children having to undergo general anaesthesia to have their decaying teeth removed. The actual number of local children subjected to impairment over the past 5 years as a result of baby bottle decay, sugar being left on the teeth, was less than 1%. Actually, the figure for Dannevirke is 0.9%. And what if I told you that the figure for fluoridated Palmerston North children for the past 5 years was slightly higher than that, at 0.97%? We are aware of recent studies coming out of the US that show an alarming number of children suffering damage as a result of their mother's ingestion of fluoride, in addition to many of those babies also then being bottle fed formula made up with fluoridated water. Would you want to also weigh up the numbers that we now have across New Zealand with brain damage causing a lowering of IQ, as well as behavioural disorders such as autism spectrum disorder? Because Auckland, which has had water fluoridation for several decades, I believe, they are now close to 4% with autism spectrum disorder, and those are just the kids that have been formally diagnosed. I think there's a whole lot more. It is suggested that autism, ADHD, and other brain disorders are now seen in epidemic proportions. Fluoride cannot be ruled out as a contributing factor, as a recent study published just this month in the Journal of the American Medical Association. So how would we weigh that up for our babies? Less than 1% serious dental decay, which could be improved, if not eliminated, by hygiene on behalf of the parents, or 4% of our babies with a significant brain disorder as a result of this one-size-fits-all toxic treatment. This is sounding an awful lot like the cure being worse than the disease. There's so much alarming information coming out every week now about the harms of fluoride, which you simply must not ignore, because it's too hard for you to decide. As our elected council, it is simply not okay for you to close your minds to these risks. These problems are not going to go away. For some of you, this will be your last year sitting in those seats. Don't let it be that you leave this time, your time in this chamber, as one of those councillors who chose to ignore the warning signs and inflicted actual harm on their own community. Question 3, and I'll make the last page. You can breathe a sigh of relief in a moment. How will it feel in future years to be the council that was responsible for causing actual harm to the people of Dannevirke and to the local environment? I want you to imagine how it would be if we are allowed to bring all of the research and the evidence to the table for all of the residents of Dannevirke and the wider Tararua community to see and to discuss. What if there was no censorship and no covering up of evidence, no silencing by the Bush Telegraph, the local radio station and social media outlets, no expensive taxpayer-funded pro-fluoride campaign? What if the community was given the respect to be allowed to be fully aware of the history of fluoridation, along with all of the up-to-date research and risks to health for all age groups? And then what if we, the community, were to be given the responsibility to make this decision for our families, including dealing with the threats from central government? How would it feel for you as our council to know that we as a community together with you make the choice to do the right thing? The best we could do totally. I wonder what the outcomes would be if every council did this. And the last question. Therefore, are you willing to open up a proper discussion with this community about all of the aspects of water fluoridation, including all of the risks, and allow this community to make the decision whether or not to add a waste product to our water supply that will have ongoing effects on each and every one of us and our future generations for decades to come? We have many more questions for you, but I'll leave it at that for now, and I will forward a copy of this to each of you via email. Thank you for listening. I look forward to hearing your answers to these questions.
Thanks, Linda. Councillor Wallace.
Yeah, thank you for your presentation. Through you, Mayor Tracy, thanks for calling us intelligent. That was good. But I do have a problem, and we are elected by a democratic system, which is good. Democracy is alive and well, I think. I struggle with this point of view. Since that meeting, which, you know, if we spoke any other way in that public meeting, as Sharon found out, we weren't flavour of the month. And I think you remember my remark, I want the best for my grandchildren. But since then, I've talked personally to 5 dentists, 5 doctors, and I find a struggle, because I'm not a health professional, and they have a different point of view. Okay, and I don't believe that those type of people would spend that amount of time collectively. And one of them was actually in this situation when it came before this council many years ago, when the professional body of the town got together, and he actually feared for his life because it got out of hand. So this is what I'm saying. I think we need, I'm open to what that discussion is, but I hope that when you do, and if it does happen, that we have it in a manner that a coin has got 2 sides, because I think that's what's lacking here. I'm not muted in this room. Just be aware of that. But I struggle with the result and the answer of what we're going to do. But I will stand, I must admit, I will stand by the law of the country, because the law of the country is exactly that. But please, you know, that's only in my little circle, and these are personal friends. 5 dentists and 5 doctors, and I respect them. They're very intelligent people in their field. So I'd just like you to take that away with you, and, you know, whatever we're going forward. But I was elected to this district under the law of the government, and I will abide by the law. Thank you, Mayor Tracy.
Thanks, Steve.
Thank you. I understand how difficult it must be for you having those professionals with that point of view speaking to you. And that's why we need to have this conversation. You need to be thinking about what is above them. How much harm would they do to their own career if they dared to think outside the square? That's where it's impossible for them. And that's why we have so many of them who are aware of the harms of fluoride, but will not say so because they've got their career and their income to think of.
No, this is not a debate. You're not coming back in. Councillor John.
Thanks, Mayor Tracy. Thanks, Leonie, for a very well prepared and presented submission. I'm a little like Steve here. You both speak very convincingly, but I'm left with the view that, well, can I ask you a question? Do you think that the combined mental capacity of the New Zealand medical system produced through the Ministry of Health are unaware of the research that you relate to? Do you feel that their knowledge is lacking in detail or in modern research?
I couldn't answer that question. That's a hypothetical question. How could I possibly answer that without knowing each of them individually and what their circumstances are? I know that health professionals are restricted in what they can say and what they can do. That's why sometimes they just have to walk away from their career, or they get fired from their career. If you have a look at the doctors and the dentists, and these are some of the links that we've provided you with, if you have a look at some of those health professionals, you will see what they had to battle with to be able to speak about the conclusions that they reached. Most health professionals are far too busy just doing their day-to-day jobs. They don't actually have time to keep up with the current research. They just get fed it from above. And Leonie, as a retired health professional, is still getting fed that same stuff. It just comes down to them. And they would hardly have time to read any more than the summary of a scientific paper. They just don't have time.
And you include the Ministry of Health in that statement? There is. Why would they come out with the mandate that they have based on old or inadequate or incorrect data?
You would have to ask them that very question. It's like we have a trust in government. We have a trust in, you know, and I mean no harm. I mean, you obviously are, you are politicians, you're local politicians. But if you ask anybody, would you trust a politician? Heck no, is the response, isn't it? And yet, oh, we've got to trust them because it's the government. You know, this is the kind of conversation that we need to be able to have, not in a restricted way like this.
But in effect, you're suggesting that you as a group know more than the Ministry of Health.
And not at all, not us as a group. What we know is what we've researched from the hundreds and thousands of medical and dental professionals worldwide. What we know is that there are now very few countries still putting fluoride in the water. The rest of them have discovered that it's very bad for people, causes more harm than good. I don't know why we are part of the last remaining few. The use of fluoride in water is dying. I tell you, it is dying. In America at the moment, it has almost reached the end of its use by, and it is coming to an end. And we are here to defend the people of Danneberg. We do not claim to know more than all of the Ministry of Health scientists. Of course we don't. But it would be good to actually have a proper conversation about all of these things.
Councillor Gilmore.
Thanks very much, Your Worship. And Linda, thank you very much for coming along and presenting, and thank you very much for your courtesy at the public meeting. So that was much appreciated, how that was facilitated and how that ran. So I just wanted to personally thank you for that. I do just want to jump into a couple of the points that Councillor Wallace and Councillor Johns made, because they are quite similar to a question that I asked at a previous public forum of a different speaker, and that was really looking at why the body of medical professionals perhaps would knowingly choose to cause harm to other people. And so my question is, Linda, do you genuinely believe that medical professionals would knowingly cause harm to people? These people, presumably very, very good people, you know, we often know them quite personally, they would knowingly cause harm to people just to protect their own careers? Or do you think perhaps there's a possibility that they just have a different view on the science to what you have?
How many people are you asking me about?
Oh, thanks. I'll just clarify quickly. Thanks, Mayor Tracy, and thank you for that. I suppose I'm talking about the body of medical professionals. I'm talking about the New Zealand Medical Association, the New Zealand Dental Association, the Ministry of Health. But then specifically, I'm talking about Councillor Wallace's 5 personal friends that he talked about, who he would know as being good people, asking if genuinely the belief is that these people, the body and the individuals, would knowingly want to do harm to people just to protect their own careers? Or is there a possibility in your mind that perhaps they just have a different view on the science to what you have and what perhaps others being opposed to fluoride might have?
I would say probably all of the above. There's something called cognitive dissonance, which means, and I'm sure you understand, there's a thing over here that I believe, and there's a thing over here that I believe, and the two things are opposite from each other. What do I do? How do I bring them together? And there's a way that human beings do that, and I don't fully understand it, but it's about ignoring one and going with the other. Now, because a person is a medical professional, that doesn't make them a saint. It doesn't mean that they're always going to do the right thing. You can think of a man called Goebbels, was it?
Yeah.
Goebbels? Somebody. A dreadful person.
Goebbels with
But that's where you're going. That's you're asking. No, you're asking me to explain why all of these people think a certain way. I have no idea, Councillor Gilmore. You'd have to ask them.
Thank you for that, councillors. Linda, if you can email me those questions through, but I'll give you a quick answer in the short term before I discuss this with councillors. But in the next few weeks, no, we won't be having those conversations. This council has their focus and their energy on the long-term plan, and that's the role of this council. I'll give you also a copy of that judgment because it did actually have some very good and key points. Sorry, I haven't highlighted them. Didn't get
That's all right. I had that judgment.
that. Leonie? I'll pass it to you. Thank you. Are there any items, notification of items not on the agenda? Declarations of conflicts of interest in relation to today's item of business. Councillor Wallace?
Are you to do with the recovery?
In general?
Yeah. I'm not too sure what to say, so I'm just led by, yeah.
That. Right, moving to the confirmation of the minutes. Can I have somebody move the council meeting minutes held on the 24th of April as a true and correct record? Move Councillor Wallace, seconded Councillor Chase. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Go through those page by page. Page 5. Page 6. Page 7. Page 8. Page 9. Page 10. Thank you, councillors. I move to the community boards and committee reports. Can I have a mover, please, for the Dennevet Community Board minutes, both the 24th of April, sorry, the 15th of April and the 20th of May. Moved Councillor Ward, seconded Councillor Sutherland. All those in favour, please say aye. 11. Page 12. Page 13. Page Page 19. Page 20. Page 21. Mover for the Eketahuna Community Board minute for the 13th of May. Moved Councillor Gilmore, seconded Councillor Johns. All those in favour, please say aye. Page 26. Page 27. 29. Those in favour, please say aye. Thanks, carried. Page 30. Lastly, the minutes from Positively Woodville, their meeting on the 7th of May. Can I have someone move those? Councillor Gilmore, seconded Councillor Johns. All those in favour, please say aye. Thanks, carried. Page 37. 8. Page 30. Right, we'll move into the next exciting item, 9.1. moving into the urban growth strategy 2024-2054. So a very warm welcome. Excited to be done. Use your mic.
Thank you. I think first of all, procedurally, Amy obviously puts in her apologies. She can't be here today. But obviously her report has been pre-circulated. The growth strategy has been circulated as well. So hopefully today we're just seeking the recommendation that it be adopted. Subject to any minor tweaks that anyone may have found in the last wee while, but yeah.
Yeah, we don't have a presentation. I can bring it up if you would like us to, but I think you've all seen it, got it, been through it. So we're really in your hands to ask any questions or take us where you want to take us.
Councillor Sutherland.
Yes, Tracy, just one thing, Dan. I was just wondering, the meeting you had with EV partners, did anything of significance come out of that meeting? Just interested to know their view on the growth strategy.
Yeah, good 2 meetings. In fact, with Rangatani, we actually had a full meeting on Marae, Pukarakia, which was lovely. There was a discussion at that meeting regarding the method, and they had been concerned that we had suggested rezoning of some of their, some of Māori-owned land to industrial without talking to them first. And we explained that if we had to go and talk to everyone that we were thinking about rezoning, then we would never have got the work done. That actually what we needed to do was put it out there, ask for comment, and then respond to that comment, which is exactly what we've done. I reinforced that we'd had the conversation in Dannyburg and confirmed that we would change the zoning, that's what we had done, and we came out of the meeting best of friends. That actually they understood that process was the only way we could have done it, and we're very comfortable. And there was nothing else that came out other than they're both really pleased to have had the opportunity to be involved, and we talked a lot about where next.
Yeah, probably the overarching, a lot of their themes or interaction points are district plan related. So they don't necessarily overlap with where we're growing. It's more nuts and bolts around providing for their development interests moving forward. So conversations will be more than ongoing over the next wee while with the district plan.
Councillor Long.
Through you, Mayor Tracy. Shannon, I think all of the maps, flooding maps, have come in from Horizons. That's one of the big concerns for me for infrastructure and buildings and so on.
Short answer, no. Longer answer is we have enough from Horizons to be able to inform the growth strategy. More work is needed to refine when that comes through the district plan, and even further work will be needed by developers when they come to actually do the work and respond to any flooding. So we have enough high level stuff to be confident that the growth strategy is there, and we'll continue the conversation with Horizons that as more information comes that can be fed into the district plan process.
Councillor Franklin, then Councillor John.
Thank you, Your Worship. Not a question, but just a comment that I'd like to pass on to you, and that is that I spoke with several members of the Pahiatua community who would have been impacted by the zone changes, that you listened and you actually went back and changed it based on how they felt, and they really truly respected and appreciated that. And I've actually used it to sort of be a platform for our consultation process to say, don't say we don't listen, because here's the classic example, and be able to have an example like that was just brilliant. So thank you for that.
Councillor John.
Thanks, Mayor Tracy. Thanks Shannon and Dan for I like it. It's good. It's very good. But one little pedantic. But 102, pedantic thing, the new industrial area beside the motorway or the highway is not designated on the legend. The new industrial.
Yeah, I see what you mean. Okay, thank you. We'll pick that up. We've had a few problems with the legend in GIS. It's been in my head, and so yeah, I don't know why that's dropped off. We'll fix that. Thank you.
Thanks. We'll make sure that that's noted. Councillor Wards.
We at the agreement stage.
Not, but just before we do move this, and there's a couple of little small word changes that I've got, but we're really proud of this piece of work. You've done an outstanding job. I think that it's something that will see our communities and our district well into the future. It is one of the best pieces of work that I've seen out of this council. I'm very grateful for the funds, from the Better Off funding that have enabled us to do this, to make sure that the district plan is all set, and this is really setting our district in a good future direction. No more ad hoc growth. We know exactly where we're going and we can plan for it. So I just wanted to say thank you very much. It's been fantastic to be part of the process, and I certainly want to pass over to Councillor Wards, who has led this through the strategy and planning committee, and has put a powerhouse of work into this, and you should be very proud of it as
Thank you, Your Worship. You took the words right out of my mouth, but it would be my overwhelming privilege with gratitude to move the recommendations in total, and sincerely thank both of you here and Amy and the team that's gone in behind this powerhouse of work, as Her Worship has said, and demonstrates to me the value in having people who know what they're doing leading us on this journey. So, sincere thanks. It would be my pleasure, Your Worship, to move this recommendation that we adopt this growth strategy.
Thank you, Councillor Wards. Councillor Johns, you would be more than pleased. All those in favour, please say aye.
We had a recommendation that the boss gives them a pay rise.
Are we printing copies of this, or is it just digital?
I don't believe there's a plan to print them. It's available now on the website. We'll obviously make the changes that you've got, and we'll get that just tidied up. And I just want to say thank you. I mean, actually, it's been a great process, but frustrating at times, hasn't it, Peter? But I think one of the things that we believe in the work that we do is the ability to put something out there, hear what people have to say, change it, refine it, get it better, get it better, get it better, get it better. And that has been really wonderful that you as council have allowed us to do that and to go through that process thoroughly, because many don't. They just want it on the piece of paper, tick the box and move on. So, a real credit to you all that you allowed us to go through that process and didn't criticise us for not getting it quite right in the first go, but allowing us to move it and get it basically. So yeah, thank you.
And thank you for being here today. I actually think that that's quite special to close off this piece of work. And look, every town, this wasn't just about the growth of the new highway. This is every single town in every part of our district. So I just wish we'd probably done LTP consultation at those same meetings. I would have had some good engagement. So people really enjoyed it, being able to talk, and I know that Councillor Johns will be really looking forward to that new highway and know that that vision's there. Thank you very, very, very much. I was going to suggest if we were printing one, Councillor Ward, you could have had copy one, but we're not. You'll have to settle for a photocopy. No, you need a couple of copies as well. No worries. Thank you. Move on to item 9.2. Peter Windsor is going to give us a Three Waters update. Peter.
Thank you, Your Worship and councillors. So this has been working in the background since the reversal of the previous government's reform program. We haven't seen the legislation that is proposed to actually affect the idea of a council-controlled organisation. But nonetheless, we have been working quite strenuously, continuously behind the scenes over the past few months in particular, to try to pull together what a Horizons Manawatu Wanganui region might look like. Not Horizons Regional Council, by the way, but that area. And more recently, we have become aware that the Wairarapa have been doing the same exercise, and it would be remiss of us not to consider that direction as well. We have reached out north of us without any particular success, but the point being that this will stand on its own merits as a principled opportunity or risk to us. And the risk is that without government support or backing of a council of our size, then we may be left adrift, which is problematic. And there is advantage of joining with others to reduce some overhead costs around provision of waters. The other aspect of this is what are those benefits and how do we control and continue to influence in terms of the growth strategy that we just adopted, the housing strategy that we have, our district strategy. These major guiding principle documents need some way of actually being delivered upon. And if we don't maintain control over some of the most critical infrastructure that we have, which is currently in our control, then we may be weakened in our ability to influence in the future. So it's pretty fundamental. The other aspect is, as a council, we are getting close to our debt limits. The idea behind having a CCO is maybe being able to open up new financing avenues. What that looks like currently is hinted at more debt, but of course we're aware that more debt merely adds to the costs of the consumer and whoever that might be, in terms of they mightn't be ratepayers anymore if it's through a CCO, but they will be paying through a user pays method of some sort. That leads to one of the most interesting aspects where we as a council have adopted district-wide rating for waters. There's only one exception at the moment, that's the Pongaroa Rural Scheme, which is done differently because it's targeted, but pretty much across the district, we're district-wide. Will we end up with a regional-wide funding system?
I missed, what did you say type of rating?
Targeted. Sorry. So will this end up regional-wide rating? And the impact of that is that as projects come up district by district, we will all as district by districts want to influence how that charging works. So it's pretty simple that there will be more constraints if it is regional wide charging. It's also going to have to be done outside of the auspices of the Local Government Act in respect of all the accountability that we currently have. You know, the district plan, all the consultation on that, where we grow, the rating system, our consultation on funding policy, all of these documents that come together which make the long-term plan and annual plans won't be there. The funding will be determined through our relationship with the council-controlled organisation, how much we can influence that. So therefore, we are in the situation that that basic Local Government Act protection, that it will come down to the Ministry of Commerce to regulate the fee setting process. So this is the example that happened when Telecom, who was private sector at the time, was split into two parts, where Chorus is a natural monopoly. Waters are natural monopolies. In other words, there is no natural way or low-cost way of competing or creating competition. You can't have two wastewater pipes making it into one household. It's not practical. So there's always going to be one. And because of that, that creates special economic conditions which can only now be controlled through a CCO model through the Ministry of Commerce and their powers. So this is where it's kind of headed. Just to bullet point why we might like the idea of a CCO. So I've got 4 bullet points which I've paraphrased from many of our writings across the region. Is to retain ownership and strategic control. So a CCO, no, this is me summarizing to you. Retain ownership and strategic control. We need to achieve that. We need to enable access to improved funding tools, or why do it? We need to have a shared voice as a region to influence central government in its policy setting. So we know governments come and go, but if we are in a position regionally to present projects and get prioritisation and maybe funding where growth is exceeding our capacity to manage as a region, then we might present better, as an example. And just improved capacity to manage change, because change is coming. There are new engineering standards, design standards. So there is a number of commonalities that are coming that we need to, at the moment, figure out us as a little council how to deal with. But as a collective, we might be better able to manage that through access to staffing and qualified staffing and support. So that's a quick synopsis of where we're at. Mayoral Forum, there's papers going on the 10th of June that are being prepared as the Manawatu Wanganui region. We're just finishing the drafting of those. Plus, we're working on this Wairarapa work. I'll open it up for questions.
Thanks, Peter. Councillor Johnson, Councillor Waltz.
Thanks, Mayor Tracy. Yeah, no, thanks, Peter. I guess the CCO model is probably no different to what was going to happen under Three Waters. It's just a slightly smaller operation. But the big risk there was that we would quite likely lose control of our own destiny to a large extent, and that if the CCO, regardless of whether it's through Wairarapa or Horizons region, creates priorities that will inevitably be more on that side of the hill, we can be stymied in our growth aspirations. would be stymied in our growth aspirations. And that concern remains. I'm not quite sure what we do about it, if there's anything we can do about it. But I did have a couple of questions, and one relates to, you make mention of you've had discussions with Wairarapa. What discussions have you had? Are they showing an interest, or have they said, oh yeah, we'll look at it, or quite where is that at?
Through your worship. So the Wairarapa Council's reached out to us and said they're going through a current exercise looking at the Wairarapa councils on their own without connecting through to the, I've got to be a little bit careful what I say here because a lot of this is still in the early stages. So at this stage, it's really just around the investigative type phrase to look at would there be benefits for us to look at some of the I guess look at some of the similar results we've been looking through the Horizon sites and be able to compare the two in a lot of ways. So even the consultant who's doing this work for the Wairarapa and ourselves has reached out to our consultants working on the other side. So we're after getting the best outcome for Tararua, and if that means we're having some discussions with the Wairarapa, then I think we should have them. And Peter covered this off before. Earlier stages, we did also reach out to councils north of us to see if there was any interests from them, but at this point, there's none. It's very early stages.
Brian, appreciate that. This mayoral forum, presumably no decisions are going to be made at mayoral forum prior to a full discussion and decisions from us as to which way we run.
No, I think it's where, my understanding is it's where they'll bring the information once they've gathered it together. So we've actually, I haven't seen the information myself. The one comment that I would make is if, I did commit Tararua to this. One of the parts that concerns me is that the Horizons region has potential to split off quite significantly. That puts that entire model at risk. So I did give our commitment because we were one of those ones that we can go, in different directions as well. So I have voiced that, and it does concern me that there's a lot of work being done on minus this one and minus that one as well. So I just thought I'd highlight that. In regards to your question, worrying about us being looked after with growth, we do all work together as a region, but I think our challenge is actually meeting compliance first and foremost. Well, Councillor Wards and Councillor Gilmore.
Thank you, Worship, for that explanation and the answers that were given to Councillor Johns. The context I'm concerned about here with all of the different forums and all of the different options, who is actually some of the mover and the shakers, the influencers in all of these forums? Because as I've expressed to this council and certainly to you, Peter, we have a big risk here of being left behind or just ignored. And I'm curious to understand some of the dynamics around the strategic movers and shakers in this, and who do we need to make sure we stay on track with. And I appreciate the explanations you've given and some of the points here around 4.8 and 4.7. I think they were, Peter, that we've got a CE forum, we've got a mayoral forum, we've got, people in your role in each of the councils, but there's a lot of moving pieces here, and who's going to actually be some of the major players that we need to stay not in bed with, but you know what I'm saying? We don't want to lose and drop the ball any opportunities that come our way. Bit of a bigger picture. I'm just curious to understand from you, Mayor Tracy, from you, Brian, and from you, Peter, where some of the chessboard pieces are moving at the moment.
Through your worship, so a lot of this has been driven through the regional CEs. Largely, there's a resource that Wanganui District Council has someone full time on this, Catherine Stewart, as part of that. So she's doing a lot of the facilitation around around that. One of the Mayoral Forum and the Seas was real conscious that we didn't want to leave the respective councils behind as well, hence this paper. So this item that Peter's presented is largely similar to every council's received as well. So there'll be, Peter's made some tweaks to it and added some more specific stuff for Tararua in it, but it's to get us all on the same page. We're not the last council to present this, so I understand there's still a couple others. So that's we're really conscious of leaving everyone. A lot of some of those key decisions around that real high level stuff is still to be decided through the legislation as well, which we're expecting later this year.
The concern, to support Brian, the concern is that we haven't seen that legislation and they still seem to have the same adoption date. So once again, is there going to be proper consultation?
I just concur that it is Wanganui's team that are leading this. It's at the direction of the mayors through the mayoral forum. The change there is we actually have elected. So Mayor Bernie Wanda from Horowhenua chairs that. So it's at the direction of the mayors that they are doing this, work. And it was the mayors that raised, actually, we need to make sure that everybody's taken on this journey at the same time. So I look forward to seeing some of that work. Peter.
So those councils that are on the boundary of the Manawatu Wanganui area have natural interests on their border boundaries and what they're doing. So that applies to Horowhenua and to Rangatiki, Ruapehu. So they are in discussions north and south as well, so that we have a balanced understanding of what the opportunities are. Where this might end up in time, you've got to walk first. It was a big task if we were going to go live with the Labour government's approach. That was a huge undertaking to suddenly rush everything together. This way we can stage it. We might end up in 10, 15 years time with a even more enlarged CCO, but we've got to make sure it works for us first. I think that's the key.
I was just going to say, sorry, Tomata Arawai policies probably will need to be widened to cater for stormwater and wastewater, because at the moment they're just water. So there has to be a regulator thing going on as well.
Councillor Gilmore, then Councillor Sutherland and Councillor Franklin.
Thanks very much, Your Worship, and thanks very much for the report. Some really important stuff on the horizons, as we all well know. I have a couple of quick questions within the report, if that's okay, and I'll probably just ask them all or both of them at the same time. But my first thought when I'm looking at this and seeing some of the movement happening around the country is, are we moving as fast as possible? And I'm quite mindful of our district's experiences with the 89 reforms, the local government reforms. So making sure that we won't be in a position that we have very little choice. We may be in that position already, I'm not sure. And I suppose where that's come from is, which has already been commented on a couple of times, but having a look at the papers and the reference to the Wairarapa councils and Horowhenua, Her Worship mentioned Horowhenua's mayor as chairing that group. There has been already stories about them being a part of the mega Wellington entity with former Mayor Kerry Prendergast chairing. And that is, the signals publicly coming out of that are incredibly positive. So straight away, that takes one of our potential options that we might be spending a whole heap of time on, and then quite a big population base that could be within Horizon. So that's why I'm asking the question of, I would hate for us as a district to be left behind and then have the government kind of force someone to take us. So what are we confident we're moving as quickly as possible?
Through your worship, the issue here is that when the Labor government was pushing through the National Transitional Unit work, and we were set up into different entities, so there were the 4, then the 10, we were always down on the list as the area to actually go forward, which made sense in one respect, that if the government changed and reversed it all, we would have been left in the position of having done a bunch of work which would have been wasted. However, that work has been transferred. We actually made sure nationally that that work wasn't lost before the winding up of the National Transitional Unit. So about 2-3 months ago, they made available the database in which all the data for all of the country had been collected, and you can see your bit and your entity bit and pull the information out. But because we weren't as advanced as some of the other areas, and Southern North Island and South Island, for instance, were lower in the prioritisation, with Auckland being and North Auckland being the first cab off the rank, that meant that they had a lot of the paperwork done. And we are still pulling that together as a region now. So it's not the end of the world, but we're trying to make sure that the business case stacks up when it's presented to the Mayoral Forum next as the next priority, and that we're ready to move once the legislation parameters are set. The interesting thing around the legislation is how will it incentivize councils to be forming CCOs? What is in there that gives that legislation the direction that forces or encourages us to be part of a CCO? I think that will be the most interesting part there, plus how the Ministry of Commerce and Commerce Commission processes will function. So it's just, we just don't know, but it's close. It's very close now. So the timeliness of giving this report, we could have reported this in a stripped down version about 2 months ago, but we have advanced significantly. For instance, we've now done a risk register, which has over 40 risks identified. So if you think this is a risk-free plan, it's not. So we've done a lot of work in the last couple of months in particular.
Through your worship, and just to add to that, Councillor Gilmore, I'd be surprised if a council, especially within our region, to get left on their own. I think we're in a stronger position by being surrounded by 3 different regions as well. And it's not going to be about negotiating, but we do need to look at what's going to be best for the community. But there's a real strong commitment through the Mayoral Forum that all those councils are ultimately committed to work on that model and get the best out of that. And I think further to what Peter said, the legislation, I suspect, will tidy some of that up in regards to councils being left on their own. And I can think of examples now, such as Gisborne, that might be feeling a bit like that at the moment, not being big enough to go on their own. I've heard conversations about 3 or 4 councils talking to each other, and they don't even have any boundaries. One in the north, one at the bottom of the south, and somewhere else. So there's a range of options still being considered. But I do think once the legislation's put in place, it will tidy and tighten a lot of that up.
Councillor Sutherland.
Thank you, Tracy. Yeah, I think Peter made a comment before about choice. There might not be too much choice. Actually, there might be options, but I think there'll be some strength in the legislation. So I think we could talk all we like about this, but I think there'll be some really defined courses of action to take. But just through to Peter. So your last, Peter, 5.4, I was just trying to get my head around this. There's a risk of if there is a risk of insufficient agreement for a region, which I appreciate there is, meaning each council will need to develop its water services delivery plan and reconsider collaboration at a future point. Now, we are having to do our water services plan. Anyway, right now, it's nothing to do with uncertainty, is it? So that we're in this, and this is what we're considering. I mean, it's a matter of urgency for us now, hence our meeting yesterday. Part of our meeting yesterday was around that. So is just to get my head around this, but so is the region at the moment, the regional, are the regions looking at a water services plan for, let's say, is Horizons doing something in this area themselves regionally? Or is this just the district councils? Because it doesn't matter, is it? It doesn't matter about insufficient agreement. We've got to get on with this, are we? Yeah, okay.
Following that, is there a regional plan?
Sorry, I jumped you.
That's right, Peter.
Through your worship. So the same problem that we had with asset management plan development. So, and here's where you can see cost savings coming through. Each council previously has developed asset management plans, which include 30-year strategies. Under the NTU and the 10 entities concept, we ended up going to NTU and saying, help us develop this, write this for us, because that will save us a bunch of consultants cost. And they got underway, but unfortunately they handed it back before it had been actually finished. So we had to take that over, hence the work Marcus Clifford and I did earlier in the year. That in itself though saved a lot of money by doing it in-house without having to go to consultants, which has been the traditional approach to get these things done, because it had been summated down to the essential information for the Tararua District as an appendum to the major 10 into one of the entity plans. So you can see how it's a bit like if we combine with all the audits for our annual report, and we had a regional annual report and one audit of all of the councils in the region instead of each of the 7 having to get Audit New Zealand in. There is a massive cost saving and efficiency if you can combine that cost together. So you end up only with one instead of 280-page long annual report. You might end up with a 350-page annual report with specific for each district area as appendices to that. You're still accountable, but you've saved a lot of overhead. Same deal here is that it's too soon for us to be able to do individual water service delivery plan. They will be underpinned anyway by the work we've just done and the work that we're about to do. So we're saying that we'll revise our infrastructure strategy and plan for waters, come up with a new asset management plan for Tararua, and that will form the water service delivery plan, along with all the other requirements that will be set out in the legislation to meet the government's goals. So right now, we are going ahead. We're preparing what we think is necessary for the Tararua District. That will be the basis that will probably end up in our CCO as a starting point, and that's a good handover point. If you think that CCO will take some time to form, what their roles, responsibility, their accountabilities will take time to develop as a region. We will then have this document that we've already prepared and met the legislative requirements right now, but it will eventually become a consolidated document. That's how I see it.
That wasn't too convoluted.
Your worship. So effectively, I think there will be a stage approach in terms of once the setup and the planning obviously will be part of that. But at the first, it might be procurement, then it might be the how we then do some shared services, then it could be contracts and project management. And I think all of those aspects will help form the bigger plan as well. So I think the opportunity that this model provides us is to be able to actually step through it without rushing to the end result really, really quickly, which was probably one of the criticisms under the previous government's Three Waters model. I think as CEs, we're really looking at across across everything in terms of realistically how much time we'll need for each stage.
Just to quickly finish off there, but be that as it may, or just get clear, so, but by September, we do have to have the first cut of a plan to go to DIA or go to the unit, don't we? And we might be coordinating that with the regional, but we do have to have one of ours, which might not be the whole thing, Brian, but maybe we may have it on a stage, we may present a staged basis. That is it, yeah.
I think most councils are in a similar sort of position at the moment as well, where I think one of the challenges we've got, we have looked at this for the first 10 years through the lot of work we're doing. But really we should be going to that 30-year. So a lot of our figures are for 10 years, and a lot of the big projects for some councils could be in the first 10 years, which includes us. Others might be beyond the 10 years where they're key. So there's still a fair bit of work around that side of things still to happen, but we're on track and we're making really good progress.
Councillor Franklin, then
Thank you, Your Worship. More an observation than anything. Right at the beginning of the discussion, when we talked about Wairarapa, and it's the fact that it's got 3 councils, Masterton, Carterton, and South Wairarapa, making up one area, but they are still like we are. We are a district of one district with 4 towns and how many villages and coastal property communities, and we are both divided by a geographical barrier to our regional councils. So Wellington Regional Council, surely for the Wairarapa, is a bigger barrier for them as what ours is into Horizons. To me, if it was possible, I would see that as a logical partnership, because we are both so similar in the way we are impacted by basically the amalgamation that took place in 1989. And so I was quite heartened to hear that there was some talk about talking with the Wairarapa, which would keep us on the east coast as well. And yes, I understand Gisborne must be feeling pretty nervous with Central Hawke's Bay and the Hastings district going right the way up to Wairoa. So that was just my observation as a more kind of we have more in common, I think, with them than actually we do with the likes of Horowhenua and Wanganui.
And I think another key point there is that it's the same iwi through that region as well, across to the Horizons region. You're looking at about 27 different iwi as well, so that still needs to be factored into the planning.
Thanks, Mayor Tracy. Yes, it's quite likely that Wairarapa don't want to get spend a lot of money on Wellington's waterways, and they're looking north rather than south. Hence their interest possibly. But it occurs to me, as soon as you set up a CCO, no matter where it is, they'll need to be funded, and they'll need to be funded by charging for water. So it seems reasonably logical that the first thing that anyone's going to do is put in meters. So do we factor that into our plan?
All council. That is in the plan currently. It's not something that has stuck out, but that's where we think things are headed. And what's interesting is where are the other councils in terms of their thought and planning for that type of rollout? It's in our numbers. Our numbers are going in to build the regional model, but some councils don't have those costs appearing yet. So we might be a little bit ahead of the game in that respect in terms of the costing. But to compare apples with apples, all of us will have to cost that in, and it should form part of that justification model to join together. The other thing about this is that you don't need to have regional targeted rate or regional wide rates initially. You could phase that in. so that there isn't a great deal of change in the short term, but it's only once things have settled down, then we draw things together. One of the big areas of concern for the region is the large wastewater program for Palmerston North City. And some of the modelling is about that. That's why you see those different who's in, who's out calculations. We've actually even increased that since I wrote the report, the number of models. It's getting very confused, I have to say. And we're also looking not only 10 years, but 30 years out. And the problem with that is that our 11 to 30 years as Tararua is based on the master plan work we did, which is extremely expensive, and we won't be able to afford that. So our numbers need to be dragged back, and there's probably insufficient time to do that quickly. This is why we've just started this process of working out what that long-term plan looks like, that long-term plan. But so we're not in a great space with that side of things, but we are in a good space in terms of the first 10 years and understanding our costs and needs. Does that help? I'm just saying that there's a lot of things up in the air here.
No, thank you, Peter. Are there any further questions or comments? Otherwise, certainly come back to you after June when we get presented that information. So there's a recommendation on page 51 that the report be received. Moved Councillor Wallace, second Councillor Sutherland. All those in favour, please say aye. Thank you, Peter, for the work that you're doing in that space. Okay, right, item 9.3, the Local Government New Zealand Conference and Annual General Meeting. Galen, do you want to take this or do you want me to just run through it?
The Local Government New Zealand Conference and Annual General Meeting coming up in August, which is the first time that they've held it in August. It's always been in July in my lifetime in local government. Be a good time for a change. Part of the Local Government New Zealand conferences, there's the annual AGM of Local Government New Zealand. Now that requires 50% of councils to be in attendance at the AGM for a quorum, and any delegates voting on behalf of our council this council needs to pass a resolution specifying who they are. So the recommendation before you is to firstly decide on which members will be accompanying Her Worship the Mayor to the conference, and then who will be out of those attendees, who will be the alternate delegates to vote at the AGM should Her Worship not be present to exercise our council's vote.
Thanks, Sally. Councillors, just speaking to item 1.2, I'll just read the councillors that have given availability and interest in attending. So we've got Councillor Sutherland, Councillor Wards, Councillor Franklin, Councillor Petty-Weber, Councillor Wallace and myself. So that's 6, and also Councillor Chase and Councillor Gilmore have also expressed interest but also attended the conference last year. We do try and take everyone. I do have room in the budget to cover the 6 attendees, and can look if there's any spare budget to extend that out. But actually, the part that does concern me at the moment is probably making sure that we've got some reserves in case anyone comes through with COVID or illness that can step in. So any councillors that can't make it, certainly if you could keep your diaries clear so that we can have a couple of reserves. You'll go, happy to go as a reserve as well. Thanks, Councillor Johns. So we can afford the 6 if everyone's happy with those 6 attendees going to Wellington. It is a lot closer venue. Councillor Sutherland.
So I did mention I was a sort of $1 each way, really, depending on interest from around the table. I'm still that way, really. If it was a budget issue or you thought you want to hold a reserve back, I'm happy to be that. But otherwise, I can go. But I'll just leave it up to yourselves and other councillors. If you'd sooner have another councillor go, or someone else would really like to, I'd be heard.
And look, to be fair, I can, it's really just the accommodation side. On the ticket side, I can probably squeeze another one, and I do try and make as much available for Wellington. So I'm more than happy, councillors, if you want to extend that out. It's just how you make that decision on those that have already attended and those that don't want to. So that's normally how I've run it as a fair process. But if people are happy with the 6, I may need another ticket for something else that I'm just looking at. So I've got 6 places. Councillor Sutherland, do you want to indicate whether you want that now or whether that's up for somebody else? And I do apologise, Councillor Long, I'm pretty sure you are out with carving. So next year, if Christchurch suits, then we could look at that.
Fine, if there's a budget for 6 and those 6 want to go, I'm happy to be part of that. If there was a ticket missing for something, I could miss whatever that was. To make it easy.
May I have?
I'll pop those in and we'll just go down, if I can, to the next one. So councillors to be appointed as alternate delegates, I do think this is quite important because as we've seen with COVID going through at the moment, it's quite a spread. So I've just put Councillor Erina, and can I have another volunteer? Councillor Ward's here, keen to be the next delegate.
Aren't you like?
Is any further discussion? Yeah, and I will have a look at those budgets. Okay, so the recommendation 1.1, the report from the Manager of Democracy Services stated the 14th of May 2024 concerning Local Government New Zealand Conference and Annual General Meeting being received. That Her Worship the Mayor, Mrs. T.H. Collises, and Councillor Sutherland, Councillor Wards, Councillor Franklin, Councillor Peter Weber, Councillor Wallace are registered to attend the 2024 Local Government New Zealand Conference. That the Council, being a member of Local Government New Zealand, appoint Her Worship the Mayor, Mrs. T.H. Collis, as the presiding delegate to vote on its behalf at the 2024 Annual General Meeting of Local Government New Zealand, and that Councillor Peter Weber and Councillor Wards be appointed as the alternate delegates to vote on Council's behalf in the absence of delegate. For that recommendation, Councillor Peter Weber and Councillor Franklin, all those in favour, please say aye. Just noting that all those remits will come to Council for full discussion prior to voting. Item 9.4. For information under the Local Government Official Information and Meetings Act, it's becoming a very interesting report.
Note that it seems that the information requests come in waves, so there wasn't any for a while and then a whole lot more. And then since writing the report last week, the ones that were outstanding, then I managed to close them off, but then I got another 4 come through in the last couple of days. So just, it's the gift that keeps on giving.
The multiple request scenario, has that person been charged for the inordinate amount of time taken to process his requests or her requests?
When a person, when we intend to charge someone for provision of information, if it's going to take us quite an amount of time, we send them, we write to them and advise them of how much time we expect it will take, what the expected charge would be, and we seek their agreement to that. Once we have that agreement, we would then do the work and invoice them. But until we receive that response from them agreeing to accept the charge, no work is done and therefore no invoice is sent. And that's the state at the moment. We've got 2 out for that we wish to charge for the work that's going to be taken. One of them is going to take minimum of a day to do, just to pull the information together, and that's being, probably take more, but we're only going to charge them for 7 hours. And the other one we were going to have to charge for 5 hours work, but neither of them have come back to accept those charges. So until that happens, the work won't be done and they won't be charged.
Say that these will be going up on the website shortly. That's great.
I'm allowed to ask, who is New Zealand? Excuse me, through Mayor Tracy, who is New Zealand Animal Law Association? Ever heard of it?
Probably give it a Google. We have a recommendation on page 61 to receive the report. Can I have someone move that? Councillor Wallace, seconded Councillor Johns. All those in favour, please say aye. Thank you, and thank you, Ali. Right, item 9.5, the Mayoral Relief Fund final report, and never say the words final. So I just do have councillors to note one query on one payment, which of $2,000, which I am just looking at. So that may not be the final if that payment doesn't go through. So happy to take any questions on that. Starting to receive some of the thank you letters. Very appreciative of the, of the small token in comparison to some of the damage that has been caused. But they're still very, very grateful for the assistance. Councillor Wards.
Thank you. Just an inquiry around the second lot where we agreed to up the. Was there many big ticket items, or did you spread the money again throughout because of the number of applicants for that larger?
So as a starting point, it was spread out over the different applications, and then a priority was given to red stickered properties and also those that were hugely impacted. And I guess that was where the advantage of working with the recovery manager and just understanding the on-track fund and where those significant. Yeah, I guess that the more damage a property had after we'd finished that baseline figure of giving some assistance to everyone, the pool that was left was divided over those that had.
Just subsequent to that then, Mayor Tracy, the reason I asked that was I was aware that in the first round, there were people that didn't apply, but in that second round where there was potentially a higher amount they could have received, there were applications. So I'm just trying to understand. So it sounds like we applied the same criteria. If you put an amount in, we spread it rather than focus on 2 or 3, for instance. Okay.
There were just too many that were significantly impacted to go through and assess them. Yeah. I have somebody move that report saved, and I'll certainly come back with more information on the other. Move to Councillor Chase, second to Councillor Long. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Right. Now we have the Cyclone Gabrielle recovery team joining us, and I'm probably one seat short, so. Do you want to introduce your team? I can just, when you do speak, I can just get you the mic because we are recording as well.
Look, I'll introduce the team first. On my left is our part-time comms lady, Trudy. Mitchell is our project lead and economic lead. And here we have Jane, who is obviously the Rural Support Trust person. And on the end, we have Sarah, who is our Community Hubs person. So we'll get straight into it.
Smile just for one moment, because I think your photo is going to be taken.
So any of you. Chin up. Thank you so much. I never thought I'd be surrounded by such a vivid beauty, so I think, yeah. There you go. I look at look, I stepped into the role in May of last year, and as recovery manager for after Sandra James was appointed as your response manager. Look, the first two things that were apparent was that your CDM response was outstanding. There was no two ways about that, and it has been appropriately recognised by Sir Jerry Mataroi's report. The second thing was that Sandra had set up the recovery team appropriately for during the recovery process, and which we'll just go quickly through that. The other point was that how successfully everyone worked with iwi, NGOs and community groups for a quick response, but also move into recovery. So I just want to just say that made my job particularly quite easier from the point of view of not having to pre-plan everything. Sandra had done all that. The other thing of that is too, we also had embedded in the team, which is quite unusual when we went into other areas. We had Rural Support Trust embedded because obviously the biggest impact was on farm. Plus we had our MPI, Senior Advisor Lee Ransom, whose knowledge of the area as well was so invaluable, as well as giving a heads up about funding early on. So we were, I guess you could say, we hit the ground running anyway. The one thing I will say, we did go to Hawke's Bay just to have a look at there. Obviously, devastation was just huge. One thing we did note though was that we felt when we came away that we had a good set up to make sure our recovery would be almost seamless. It would just keep on carrying on, whereas they had such huge problems and weren't even talking to each other at times. So we made sure that we also had regular meetings, weekly meetings to make sure everyone was coming together and that we're helping each other. So that I think was making it quite easy. The other thing is that timing is everything in this situation where you've got government money coming through, and you only got certain times to apply for it. We made sure there were surveys that had been done, so we really knew where the impact was and what was required. When the government money came through, we made an application, and very quickly that money was put out to the appropriate people at an appropriate time, and reports were made. So we didn't miss out on any funding, making sure of that. And I'll make a point that that is where we need to be looking at the future as well, to make sure any funding opportunities come on, Tararua gets that funding. So we can look at the first slide, please. Have I got the clicker? Yeah, that's work.
Sometimes.
I'll just give you half a minute just to digest that. In the recovery office there, I'll just make a point, the first year DIA 500,000, that wasn't fully used, but however, you'll see further down where it was applied. The second year, we've got DPMC funding of 450,000. We also got another 450,000 to carry us through to 2025. That is a pretty important point. Not on there. The other ones, the project funding, MPI, total 1.25, 1 million on Tararua On Track Fund, which we'll give you a rundown on. The Community Hub Fund that Sarah's been in charge of. DIA 188,796, wellbeing events, and you can see the list along there. It's quite a big list. Plus, the Eastern and Central Community Trust came in quite late, and 15,400 has been used for disability ramps at 2 community hubs, one of each to be completed. Plus, now $10,000 have just been used for on-farm first aid courses, which were last week. And to be honest, were hugely well received, because it was actually giving first aid courses for people on farm. So it's bike rollovers, those sort of injuries that have usually been missed. And also the MB 355,000 business support fund that came through quite early. So we'll just go on to the structure. So that was the structure that Sandra had set up with Brian. And in the initial stages, everyone was working pretty hard to ensure that A, we're across everything, and B, we're getting enough information and data in to ensure that A, that we were doing the recovery in a proper progression, and also we're nailing the people that really needed help. And I have to say, again, at that initial stage there, the amount of work that's been done either through iwi or through NGOs and community groups was incredible, it really was. So that is how we were set up. Now, in there, the built recovery lead was actually became Mark, who's now left. Social recovery lead was Tony. Economic recovery lead was Colin. Rural recovery, Jane. Natural recovery was Horizons Grant Cooper. Now, if you just go and on to the next one. So I'll leave it now to Trudy to give us an update.
We just want to spend a little bit of time looking at the achievements over the last 12 to sort of 15 months. I won't spend a lot of time because we're going to talk about what we're doing going forward, but I just think it would be a really good idea just to pull out some key things that we're particularly proud of, and I think did wonderful things for our district through this recovery. So I know in your agenda packs you've got this key achievements information, and also our timeline. That's quite comprehensive. I won't speak to every point. I just wanted to show you a map here. Now, I apologise, it's a little tricky to see, but this map sort of outlines the severity of the impact to farmland and land through the cyclone. Obviously, the purple shades are that high impact, and you can see as it goes down. What we've done is we've overlaid where the Tararua On Track Fund applications came from. I guess what this does really well is it shows that the most impacted did receive those funds. You know, that's where those applications were coming from. That's where that $1 million of MPI supported money went to. And I just think that's quite a strong visual thing. So we wanted to share that with you. The $1 million Tararua On Track Fund was one of our key projects in this recovery so far. It was an enormous project. It's had huge benefits to our district, and it's money that we're really proud that we could get for our district and get out to our farmers and our landowners. I also just wanted to talk through just a couple of other key achievements. So we conducted a wellbeing survey last year, and we went out to our communities and we asked them a few key questions. And one really key thing that came out was that they wanted some more social connections, some events in that wellbeing space. So we took that information to DIA, and we got $25,000 that we could put towards that. So what we did there is we supported the Rural Support Trust Expo with some vouchers and catering, and that event that happened in November. We bought the Fuel Your Stoke event to Pongaroa, and we partnered with RST on that too. That was a pretty major sort of a music festival event there. We also supported the Tararua Excellence in Farming Awards. Again, that was that affected audience. And we have a little bit left over in that fund, which Sarah's going to speak to a little bit later on. I guess, obviously the outcome that we wanted there was some wellbeing for our community, but the really tangible benefit was that people could have one-on-one conversations with RST, with our recovery team, with rural professionals. And what we got out of that was not only getting people off farm and out of the grind and out of that really overwhelming space that they're dealing with day in, day out, but coming to a lighter space to have easier conversations. And I know there was a lot of referral in there. So it's just, it was a really beneficial thing, I think, that we did. It was a great spend. It was great support. So something we're really proud of. And finally, the other project that I just wanted to highlight was our Community Emergency Hub Fund project. Sarah's going to talk a little bit more about that again soon. But I guess there we had 8 impacted communities who are now able to be self-sufficient for a number of days if they were to be isolated again for a future event before we could get to them or help could get to them. They have generators, they have gas hobs, they have barbecues. They're able to support their community for 2 or 3 days potentially until help can arrive. And I think that's a wonderful place for now 8 communities to be. That is through the $250,000 MPI support that we got there. So a bit of a highlights reel from me, but just wanted to share those kind of achievements that over those last few months. I'm going to hand back to Don.
Look, just to show you the change in the structure now. We've got the Built Recovery, which Alliance is leading. Andrew was. So if any questions, we can direct it to him. The community recovery is now Sarah. Economic recovery, Mitch, and Jane, obviously rural. Natural is back to BAU, so Grant can come in on a Teams meeting, but he doesn't usually turn up. Oh, he did last time, didn't he? Just give us a bit of background. All I'll say from that natural recovery is that Horizons is continuing on with stream and river clearance, including slash and silt, and looking at expanding their tree planting. So, and they have fixed up most of those damaged transponders and putting 4 new ones in. So we're now moving on to the focus for the next 6 months. So can we hand over now to Sarah?
So within the social community space, we have got $6,000 left in our DIA Wellbeing Events Fund. The approach to this is going to be to disperse as evenly as possible within those affected communities to get some wellbeing events tailored to what their community needs. In the next short time. I think we've got until October to have that wrapped up. Trudy spoke about the $250,000 MPI Community Hubs Fund. There's a few projects still left to complete in that. So we've got the generator wiring, some drainage work to do out at Herbertville, and just some other trade work to complete. We also have one disability ramp to be complete. This is part funded through Eastern and Central Community Trust and the MPI Community Hub Fund. We also want to complete we are going to complete a wellbeing survey in the next month or 2. We realise people are fatigued in the survey space, so we're going to come up with ways to not impact that, but still get great feedback to compare with our 2023 wellbeing survey. We'll be creating needs assessments for other affected and non-affected communities in marae. This is about preparedness outside of the Community Hubs project. We currently don't have any funds available for this at the moment, but if we identify the needs that are needed, then we can have that on file. We can make a report and pass that on to hopefully the emergency management team or the fundraising support staff here at Tararua District Council. And we'll be continuing collaboration with the social services like REAP and MSD in the Strengthening Families and other workshops and meetings.
Just so you know, I'm very extremely nervous.
I'm very nervous.
We're moving on to one not nervous business.
Yeah, so economic. Economic for the first year wasn't a major focus for us. Obviously, it was the immediate needs outlined. from the event, which was primarily that social area, that roading area and built and all of that. So now that we're 1 year on, we need to have a look at the impacts. And to do that, we're going to do a economic impact analysis with 2 prongs. So the first will be engaging infometrics for the economic effects across our district. That includes our businesses and towns and the like, and understanding how that is impacting them as a whole, but also engaging rural professionals on a second level to get that local farm data and grassroots knowledge to understand really how it's hurting our local farmers and our local rural residents. And we're hoping that once we get both of those, we can match and marry them up, and they should talk to each other. Once we get that data and have that report, then we can make some actual plans on how we can support and provide that support, whether it be through events, whether it be through applying for further funding, whether it be for creating variations to current funding to fund it. But yeah, that is our main focus in the economic space, is just getting data to understand correctly 1 year on where we're at. Yeah. Handing on to rural.
Mayor Tracy, yeah, thanks, Mitchell. You talk about rural professionals. Did you include local accountants in that? Lawyers and yeah. A lot of farmers might have accountants in Napier or Palmerston North. Leave it alone, Mitchell. How did you get hold of them? I mean, or have you just got an idea of what the needs are from those that you spoke to as a general need rather than specific?
So we've approached a local accountant already who are keen to engage with us and give us coverage for this area. They expect that they'll be able to do around 200, and our something as well. So we're expecting to get a good sample from them. Obviously, we still haven't had a reverse brief back from them to be able to understand what exactly they'll be able to carry out, but we're pretty confident. They're very keen to engage with us. We just haven't locked it quite down yet. So we'll have more on that once we can get those proposals.
Hi everyone. So as you know, I am the coordinator for Rural Support Trust. I know most of you, I think, already. And I'm also the rural lead. And for the price of me, I've got 6 other facilitators who have been working really hard in this space as well. So I just wanted to acknowledge that it's not just me. I'm really lucky to have such a great network with Tararua District Council. Recovery for me started on day 1 of the response. And I say that because that's been one of my biggest learnings. As some of you are aware, you jumped in the vehicles with us and we went out, we knocked on 500 doors at that time. At that time, that allowed me to gather some data and gather some information that we are still using today. And that's really, really important when you're trying to deliver on recovery. You've got some actual backup data and information to be able to work from. So what I'm here to talk about today is the recovery that we're doing in terms of the rural lead work. Very difficult because Rural Support Trust is doing the same thing. This is normally our space. But one-on-one support, that's our normal BAU. Although this is a really confidential kind of area, I can report that we're getting an increased number of calls also from our rural professionals who are seeing farmers out there struggling and farmers that are struggling through the cyclone. In the response phase, we identified there was around about 200 farms. That was very approximate from the mapping that we could kind of use that were impacted. And we're just seeing that now is the time, although we identified them in that response and we had the database, it's only now they're coming forward and they're reaching out, or the rural professionals are saying, hey, Jane, we need you to go out and see so-and-so. So it's only now. So that's that 15, 16 months on. Yeah. So these things take a long time. Recovery takes a long time. That's been so multifaceted, I guess. But I just really wanted to make that point. Fencing initiative. To talk about the fencing initiative that we've just got started going, I kind of got to give you a little bit of a backfill. In the response, we set up an on-farm cleanup team, again using that same database, and we used a coordinator to set that up. We found 1,400 volunteer hours to do that on-farm cleanup. Now, that was because we couldn't get Enhanced Task Force Green at the time. We couldn't find a supervisor through MSD. But eventually, through our contacts, we managed to get Enhanced Task Force Green up and running. Everybody here know Enhanced Task Force Green, what that is? It's, yeah. Okay, so we got that up and running. We followed that up at the end of the year, as Trudy said, with our expo. At the expo, we gave away about $200,000 worth of fencing materials, and I think quite a few of you attended that day. At that day as well, we also gave away wellness packs, just get people off farm to look after their well-being. It was a great one-stop shop. We had all the rural professionals there. They could touch base with us. They could touch base with them. We then disappeared off for Christmas, had a break, and we thought, right, we've done quite a lot of work throughout the year. This is fantastic. We then put on the Misfits concert, and we're really surprised when we went out and we attended that, when talking to our farmers out there, how much they were struggling. The dry was kicking in, but the financial impacts and the impacts of the cyclone were really, really starting to bite. So at that point, I pulled the team together, and we went out there and had 3 community meetings in Pongaroa, Weber, and Tiuri. The overwhelming need that came back to us was around fencing and fencers. They couldn't afford to pay for fencing, and fencers were leaving the district because farmers weren't able to pay for them. And so they were sometimes doing the work, but not able to get paid for it. So we approached MSD with this initiative, and we're really successful. So RST is coordinating this work, again using that database. We found a local fencing contractor from Dannevirke, who had been working in Hawke's Bay with their fund, who wanted to come back and be able to support their own community. So we've got, they have employed 2 MSD clients as well. And so the farmer is now, when we've identified the needs, we've asked them if they can get the materials to the fence lines, etc. And the farmer will be given up to 4 days of free fencing for 4 fencers. So that's a win-win for everybody. It's a win for the fencer, it's a win for MSD, it's a win for the local contractor. So it's a piece of work that we're really, really proud of. That's going to go for 6 months. Already we've done 4 farms and have been quite overwhelmed by the feedback that we've received. And so we're very, very grateful to MSD for their support in that. We could never have done that without them. And this is co-funded by Rural Support Trust. Can I just make the point too, that the money that Rural Support Trust has been able to put to these initiatives and events and funding things has come from our donations from the community. So this is community money that is going back to the community. So that's really important. That's where it's to go. That's what it's for. It's not for us. The unintended bonus of this fencing project has been that when the coordinator's been phoning up to set this all up, we found that 1 in 3 has meant that we've gone back to do some further support and RST work. We would never have got to do that work to support those people had we not been doing this fencing initiative through the recovery. So again, it's another touch point to be able to get in. I'll move on now to the VET initiative. The Vet Council in November set up some funding for NIWI affected areas, and we had about 20 cyclone farmers that took that up. Now look, this is really technical. It's around drainage resistance and drainage testing and worms, and so quite an area of expertise really that I won't go into today. But when we did our farmer feedback meetings, this, although that they were really grateful, they had had all that testing and reporting paid for, it raised a whole another layer of stress. So we're going going to be holding a day's workshop for those 20 farmers with working collaboratively with the vets, both Tararua Vets and Vet Services, and with Baker Ag. And Baker Ag, further to that, hopefully Rural Support Trust will be able to help fund some farm advisory work, because there's some big policy and farm decisions which implicates financials and stuff. Again, too complicated to go into, but that's the kind of high level of that vet program that we're getting going. A small farm, but it's something actually that has really tweaked a massive interest in our community, because a lot of our farmers are dealing with drainage resistance and what that can mean to their on-farm performance. Extreme dry, Minister classified this on 28th March. And again, unfortunately, this dry area was our cyclone affected area. So MPI have given $15,000 to a Rural Support Trust, which gets paid out to us on invoice. So it's not just paid up front. With this money, we're hoping to do some other events. We've already yesterday did a Norsewood pop-up lunch. I know that's slightly out of our area, but it was an area that we hadn't really touched into with that cyclone recovery. We're also helping to co-fund an event that's happening at Elfordon, and moving forward, we've got a Blokes Day Out, which is trying to get the men off farm. We're going to do a Blokes Day Out for the cyclone affected areas only, and a ladies' lunch, but they will be done in collaboration, because the 15,000 probably won't pay for all of that put together. We've now had rain, but you know, the grass just doesn't appear because we've had the rain, so we have still got some feed issues. So just today, just putting up a post. Federated Farmers, I've got a feed service, and they have put up grazing as part of that, so that's really interesting, so we can help promote our farmers to be able to get some stock off farm and get into grazing. Community feedback meetings, I've covered that off really. Just to say that we do try and get around and make sure that we are touching with our communities, so that we know that we're putting the money where it's most needed. And then the last point, supporting the built and social leads, and also keeping on supporting economic and environmental leads. So we're just continuing the work that we've been doing. None of the leads in the recovery are working in silo. And by having our fortnightly catch-ups, you know, we are able to discuss what our current priorities are, and how to work together, more importantly, because we've got outside agencies, and how we can all work together to support our rural community of the Tararua District. So look, finally from me, I'm just really grateful again to Tararua District Council for the great relationship with the Rural Support Trust and Tararua District has, and I'm really proud of the work that we have achieved as a Rural Support Trust, but not only that, the work that we've done in our recovery team. So that's kind of what's Ronald.
For you, Mayor Tracy. Jane, addressed to you. Tararua Excellence in Farming, congratulations to you for the Rural Professional of the Year. Thank you.
Very much.
Yeah, so we're not going to touch on built that much today, as there is a significant work program that the Coast Reliance team and all of them work through, and me reporting on it probably wouldn't do it that much justice. So one thing I do want to outline though is this project that we are moving ahead with, and the recovery team is helping out with, which is the land stability pilot project. It'll be a very high overview today, as we do not have complete details, but we will be working on this in the near future. This project is working with multiple agencies to fund stabilisation work on private land prone to slips, and onto the roading network. It'll be about working with Horizons and with MSD and other agencies to co-fund the planting and on the upslope and downslope of our network. A lot of these slips, I think the approximate figure was around about 5,000 to clear per slip. So every time it slips, and that was 4 to 5 times over the post-cyclone, it costs. So we're wanting to go through and mitigate. This project would be a singular case study site, and then from there we would build a report about its workability for future placements across the roading network.
Can I just make a point here that for 6 years I chaired the Road Control Authority with Robert Tane, and when he talked about a project like this, we could never got it off the ground. Lyra was going to do it, and I think Tararua at the time. To me, this is a national project, one that will take huge interest from the roading, New Zealand Transport, all councils, and I think leading this is actually quite important, and particularly the outcome of it, because you've got MPI in this as well as Alliance recoveries, where I need to steer the ship, not to actually do the work. So this to me is a very, very important project going forward.
And in addition to the previous points, the intention for this project is to be zero cost across the board, using funding opportunities from everywhere to make sure that we are not costing our ratepayers any money in doing this work. That is the intention. So yeah, we're very excited about this, and we're working full steam ahead. There'll be more on that in the coming weeks.
True.
No, it's me again.
Natural. Oh, good.
Yeah. Again, providing an update on Natural. They're in BAU work, so it's obviously business as usual for them. Don touched on this earlier, but their main focus is really just providing support to the recovery program through that land stability project, and also all the roading recovery, and providing us with any updates they have across the horizons in the affected area. One thing that we do want to note is the installing of the additional rain gauges across the district, specifically Ohanga, Weaver, Wimbledon and Cadmus Bridge. I'm 90% sure there's another couple, but I couldn't get the update from Grant in time to put it into the slide, unfortunately. So yeah, again, good work there.
Can I just ask Mitch, was there any assessment done over the whole district of where we potentially saw some other gaps in rain gauges?
Yes, so I've been Jane.
Oh, sorry, Ms. Tracy, I was trying to get this and get some more rain gauges probably now for about 7 years. So this is a bit of a victory for me, and having done it through recovery. So I guess the areas that were identified by Grant, so the natural lead at the time, and working together with Horizons, and where they identified really. So we didn't get much. I'd like to have seen a lot more for other parts of the district, as you know, but we're taking that as a bit of a win.
Absolutely. I guess I was just, if I can get a list of those others that you would see, then we can actually start lobbying them perhaps through their next annual plan and start raising that with them. Councillor Johns.
Through you, Mayor Tracy. We had a discussion a week or so ago about rain gauges where Horizons don't have the information. And I made the comment at the time, I know of 3 farmers who for 80 or 90 years have been keeping daily gauges in the district. Now, that's valuable information, but I'm surprised that Horizons hasn't picked up on it basically, or are unaware that that's the case.
I think when we went out initially and did that engagement in the response, Horizons did ask all the farmers at those farmer meetings, community meetings, to be able to provide them with the data if they had it and get it sent over there. So they are keen. So if you do know of anybody, then please let us know and we can get that data and give it to. I think it's really, really invaluable. So I agree, but it's been a bit cumbersome because, you know, we're expected to find the data to give to Horizons, and then I don't know what they do with it after that. But yeah, we can definitely, if you've got people in mind and you've got data, then definitely please let us know through the recovery team. That would be great. Awesome.
Just briefly on communications. So one of our projects going forward is that we want to create a historic photo book. It's something that Mayor Tracy and I have talked a little bit about, and we're just working through a concept on that at the moment, but to really capture as a historic record the event visually, using some facts, using some commentary, a little bit along the style of our photographic competition book, it's something that our district are familiar with. So in that same sort of a format, capturing this event through that. So it's one of our projects in the next couple of months. We still talk to our stakeholders with a monthly newsletter. We're still using the Bush Telegraph for a recovery page. We've moved that to a monthly space, or sort of as required going forward. And communications in my role will obviously support our projects going forward and recovery leads and things as sort of required.
Yeah, and then and then just the other projects that we've got going on, just to give you an overview, is we need to adopt the reviewed recovery plan. We have done a review on it, and we are nearly ready for it to go forward. There's just a couple more things to place into it, and then it'll be ready to present and get adopted. And then secondly is working with Peter Sinclair to review the Hawke's Bay Cyclone Gabrielle review lessons and recommendations, and just figuring out of those lessons and recommendations how we can implement them early, potentially using the opportunities that we have in recovery, such as the community hub funds and the star links that we've already got, which tick off some of those lessons and recommendations. But what other things can we do so that we're prepared for a future event, and recovery is in a good position for that.
Thanks very much, Your Worship. Thanks, Mitch. Just wanted to quickly check the first bullet point, adopting the reviewed recovery plan. Is that something that's being adopted outside of this council, or are you talking about something that will come to this council for discussion and adoption?
Through Your Worship, I think that recovery plans has been generally something that hasn't been adopted by this council, because those recovery plans do fall under the Civil Defence Emergency Management Act rather than Local Government Act. But it's certainly something that should come to this council for awareness and understanding of that next stage as we move, to the next 6 months. On the hold up with that plan at the moment, it is with me to review and go into detail, which I still haven't completed yet, but certainly working with the team here, we'll look to refine that and bring that back to council at a later date.
Hence my question.
Councillor Wards.
Thank you, Tracy, and I want to acknowledge I know, even though you're a bit nervous here, it's made a huge impact positively in our communities, all the work that you've done. Curious to understand a bit of a sense, obviously, Don, you've made the statement there that horizons are now back to BAU. And given, certainly, I mean, you will always have BAU, Jane, with RST. Is there a sense across the team when BAU no longer involves a recovery? Well, you've hinted much at economic, you've taken on the economic lead. We have an economic role already in council. So I'm trying to get a bit of a sense of how much is still not done that is absolutely essential, that may well be detailed in this recovery plan. But when would BAU feel like for the team?
Look, I could attempt to try this, and I'm sure Brian will have a crack as well. From my point of view, I think my role is probably just about there, and could back it easily. These young people are quite capable of running themselves, to be honest. But I think the one thing that we've got to be very careful of is that we know this one event is going to have at least a 3-year knock-on event to the business, and we need someone to make sure you're well aware of what that is, and also telling our local MPs and the government, this is not finished. There is going to be changes to the IC, the CM Act and things like that, but really it's up to communities to keep government aware of what's going on. My worry is that if there is even another event, not as big as Gabriel, it'll just impact on top of what's already happened. And for farmers out in the regions that have already been impacted, it'll be catastrophic. To be quite honest, it probably already is for most of them, many of them. That is the worry I have going forward. That it's going to affect you, Tararua, economically for some time. But just got to be prepared to see other avenues of trying to make sure how we lessen that impact.
So if I can just add to that as well. So there will be a time where that comes up, and I certainly think as the funds get exhausted, it will be forced to do that anyway. But I think while we've got the availability of resources, we should utilise that. Yeah, and take the opportunity. We can actually start sort of stretching that, dare I say it, into that sort of more resilience building that Don's just talked about. And I know Sarah's already doing some work with Peter, because we've really focused on those impacted communities, but the next time it might not be those communities. So if we can take advantage of the work and the team we've got now, we should utilise it. I'll be reluctant to put it into BAU just because of the workloads we have. But if we were forced to do that through, because we couldn't pay the salaries, then we would have to look at that. But it would be certainly a watered down version of what this team is providing. So that time will be, we're getting nearer to that time, if we were to be perfectly honest, because the funds won't last forever.
Recovery plan, the operational costs of being able to sustain.
Yeah, and the one thing that I've been sort of loath to stop talking about, Don mentioned this as well, is recovery. The structure of the recovery may change. How we go about recovery might change. As an example, maybe that I become the recovery. We need a recovery manager. We're legislated to provide a recovery manager, but that could be me going forward beyond the team. So there's a bit of work still to be done there. There is a transition there, but while we've got these fantastic people working really, really hard for us, we should sort of utilise that expertise as long as we can. But they all know as well that's not forever.
Mate, just to add comment, we have 2 weekly DPMC's Teams meetings. They are very focused on making sure you use that money. They don't want to see a cent come back to them. Simply because they have got a real sense that most of the areas are not recovered at all. And some, of course, are going to take years to get to the housing side of it. For us, we are probably ahead of the game when it comes to rural, simply because we're concentrating on that and we've got funding for that. One thing I would hate to see is in a year's time you having to give money back to DPMC. I think you should make sure you don't. And we will be talking to Brian anyway around how we can use some of that funding for things that are not actually part of the DPMC fund, simply for the team and paying that team. We're hoping that we can be able to use that for other areas that we can specifically use a project for. Yeah, that's where we go.
I guess
We have summarised anyway. Look, can I also thank the council and because we go to the ICCM fairly frequently for the, I think, encouraging the team to keep moving on. And we've never felt as if we're just an add-on. It's been something that's been important to the district. And I think also from what I hear from Jane and from the rest of the team when they go out there, the people are realising that Tararua District Council has really stepped forward. And congratulations to you, I have to say, to all of you. You've all done your part. So thank you.
Thanks for the comprehensive update, and I think Mitch, that map, Dave Murdoch may actually be even interested in that if you want to forward that through to the Bush Telegraph, because that was quite telling. But thank you very much both for involving us. Nothing gave me greater pleasure, and I was only there for a short time, and I know other councillors could pop along but the Rural Support Trust Day down, or the expo, walking into that room, it was just actually a buzz of chatter. which was really nice to hear. And, it wasn't doom and gloom, but people could have those conversations. So that was a real day that was highlighted, and was great to see, our emergency management team down there with some of our, getting some of the messages across from the fire service and how people can be prepared, because events like this will happen again, and we certainly didn't need the dry on top of it. That does cause some extra pain all around. But the jobs that you do are critical, but they're also, can take a little bit of a personal toll too. So I just want to thank you very much for, for caring for others, and being there for them at the same time, just taking that little bit of a toll for yourself. Just want to acknowledge that. And if you ever need any support, and I know Brian will back this because I haven't asked him, but we do have EAP services here for that as well, because it's quite tough taking on some of those stories and sharing that, and having that little bit of burden. So just want to say thank you from the bottom of our hearts for what you do for everybody. And yeah, like I say, when you see that map, you can almost see where the cyclone, just straight away where it went through is there. I think it's really easy to get down in the doldrums, but if I reflect, the excitement of Councillor Ward's going out to Akatio and actually seeing that work and all the machines there, we are on the build. Things are, they are looking better. And as much as that rain's falling at the moment, we did actually need it as well. It could disturb the But thank you very, very much for the comprehensive report. And councillors, just so you know, that book is certainly won't be any ratepayer funding. We'll look for funding opportunities for that as well. But I think it is quite good to capture that, so that actually we don't forget. And I do often say this, and we can never forget it. It's actually only the third national state of emergency that's ever been held in this country. Thank you very, very much. I am going to adjourn the meeting for a quick break. Right, okay, we have. Did we move that? Yes, we've moved that. Okay. I'm happy to move the recommendation that we receive the report on the Cyclone Gabrielle recovery journey. Can I have a seconder, please? The letter from the Local Government New Zealand Mayors and Chairs on Māori wards, Council Sutherland recommendation that the Tararua District Council note the letter sent to the Prime Minister, ministers and party leaders from Local Government New Zealand Mayors and Chairs on Māori wards dated the 22nd of May that had our signature attached. Can I have a seconder to that? Second to Councillor Chates. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against. Recorded, Councillor Wallace. Yes. Portfolio report.
We've been a bit busy, haven't we?
Are we, excuse me, are we having any debate on any of this?
So the document that you have in front of you is one that we'll discuss after. That's actually the Local Government New Zealand submission on Māori wards. The letter that was sent out was emailed to all councillors. So there's no debate on that, and that's a discussion item for after. That's Local Government New Zealand's.
Yeah, I got the letter, and then I got a text asking my position, but I thought this would be. I've seen other councils debate it and talk about it, and this is huge.
So A, it's not on the agenda, and B, it's done, Councillor Wallace. So including the motion. So we're going to move on to the next item. Portfolio reports. There were no. Councillor Gilmore.
Thanks very much, Mayor Tracy. I think our last council meeting was the day before Anzac Day, so just wanted to quick. Oh. Mm-hmm.
It's getting late.
No, I just wanted to just briefly talk about Anzac Day. I had the privilege, along with Councillor Long, of representing council at the Ekatahuna end of hall as well. Some really good turnouts there, but also just wanted to pass on thanks to staff for helping make some of those flyers and handouts for people that organised wreaths for the really important day that it was.
Thanks, Councillor Gilmore. I think from reports that came in, there were record attendances at every service throughout the district, which is great. Councillor Franklin.
A real follow-up to that, but when do the flowers or what's left of the flowers get removed from the cenotaph? Because they looked terrible yesterday on Fire Tour. They're all dead and wet and.
Who does that? Normally the gardeners and caretakers that to handle that, so I'll get the chief executive to look into that. Yeah, normally as a rule of thumb, I'll throw them back and recycle the containers.
That's just long.
I do have something to just update everyone on. Thank you, Mayor Tracy. So we had a very successful consultation around LTP at Pongaroa. Between the pub and the hall, it was probably a very positive thing. But just to update everyone that Pongaroa Way to Go committee are holding their AGM in June, and they are looking to probably dissolve the committee, find another way to continue to support the the activity, but it's, you know, with changes in the corporate society and succession planning, they're looking to find a different way to review that. So it's very timely with the consultation that's going on at the moment.
Thank you, Councillor Wards, and thank you also for the commitment to them attending their meetings. They really appreciated that. So it's been a good connection into Pongaroa. Councillor Wallace.
Yeah, we had a, just following up on what other activities we've been doing. We had a good session out at Northwood with the CE and Kerry and myself. We had some attendance and Peter Winsett, who was invaluable on his technical advice. And I mean that thoroughly. So that went well. And also just following up on the Anzac, it was really nice to share that Naoma come with us, and we had a good, it was really quite moving, you know, and all the work that that all the districts themselves and their own little entities do, and it's so respectful. It was so respectful, especially at Whitakura. As you know, that's the only cenotaph in our district that has all the people that went to war on the cenotaph, not just the dead ones. So it's a and they also each year they have people talking about a particular person on that cenotaph, and they do a history comeback, and so yeah, all that way around, they're pretty good. And most of the feedback we've been getting on submissions I've been getting personally have been going good. It's a matter of getting out there. I think the document we're using is good. Some people don't understand it because of the change, especially the contingency one, the non-contingency. But yeah, in general, no, we're doing well.
Thanks, Councillor Wallace. Okay, no further portfolio reports. I don't have any mayoral matters to raise. If I can get a motion to move into public excluded. Or we'll move into, sorry, all those in favour, please say aye. Carried.